At 10:23 local time over the northern South China Sea, this U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon Varsity 4-1 was holding course at 22,000 feet. Sixth hour of a maritime patrol orbit east of Hainan Island, sonar buoys deployed, looking for a purported Chinese submarine. What the crew didn't know was that in a matter of seconds, the Chinese would find them first. The P-8's primary radar catches a fast mover, military shorthand for a fighter jet, lifting off Lingshui, and within 4 seconds tags the contact as flanker class. The radar is the ANAPY-10 you see here. Active search, the electronic version of finding a wall in the dark by shouting and timing the echo back. 2 contacts now resolve on the tactical display. Lead at 15,000 feet and climbing hard. Wingman holding low station behind him. The lead jet vectors directly toward Varsity 4-1's patrol orbit at 600 knots indicated, closing the geometry at roughly 10 nautical miles per minute. The mission commander marks the contacts and confirms the patrol box with the cockpit. Varsity 4-1 holds course. The sonar buoys kept working their corridor. The acoustic operator keeps logging transients, and under the P-8's belly, the MX-20 HD camera turret slews north, and the operator pulls the lead contact in at maximum zoom. A flanker silhouette against the morning haze, still 6 miles out and closing. 6 minutes later, the lead flanker pulls alongside Varsity 4-1's port wing at 500 feet of lateral separation, holding formation as steady as a piece of furniture. Twin tails, red star bright in the sun, 2 crew clearly visible through the canopy, hard points loaded for air-to-air. If you look here at what's now riding off of Varsity 4-1's port wing, that's a J-11 BSH, the 2-seat naval flanker variant. This is the version Russia didn't know China was building until China was building it. The airframe was reverse engineered from the Su-27 licensed production deal Beijing signed in the 1990s, then quietly upgraded. Chinese-built radar, weapons, and avionics. Every component swapped out until the only Russian thing left was the shape. Russia stopped getting royalty checks years ago and is still pretending it doesn't bother them. Imagine someone bought a Russian engine, took it apart in their garage, built their own car around it, and refused to give the Russians a piece of the profits. Peak Chinese industrial policy. The flanker belongs to the PLA Naval Aviation Regiment based in Lingshui. It's the same unit that's been running barrel roll intercepts of U.S. patrol aircraft in this exact corridor for the past 9 years. Regiment commanders only authorize this kind of intercept when whatever they're protecting is worth pissing off the Americans. The mission commander calls the contact on the encrypted ops frequency and continues the patrol box. Lawful operations, international airspace, professional posture. The P-8 holds course, holds altitude, holds heading. But this flanker isn't here to escort. The pilot has a playbook, and step 2 is 15 seconds out. A PLA voice cuts onto International Guard frequency in accented English. It's the kind of accent that's been recorded in dozens of Intercept logs over the past 5 years, and is probably the same instructor's voice in all of them. American aircraft, you are operating dangerously close to Chinese territorial space. Change course immediately or bear all responsibility. The mission commander acknowledges the call without acknowledging the warning that came inside it. The P-8 holds course. Inside the lead flanker, the pilot watches the P-8's flight vector stay rock steady on his radar display. He was briefed before takeoff on exactly this scenario. Escalate the playbook step by step. If the American turns, the intercept ends. If the American doesn't turn, the next step begins. He keys his radio for warning 2. Same script, more aggressive cadence. The lead jet breaks formation and plunges away. The APY-10 loses him for a few seconds in the ground clutter coming off the Hainan coast. The wingman holds position behind the P-8's tail, watching. The lead flanker screams up from below at 600 knots indicated, slamming into formation at 200 feet of lateral separation, half the distance of the first pass. The wake from a 27-ton fighter blowing past that close shakes the P-8 hard enough to feel it in the cockpit. The pilot trims out the disturbance and holds course while the back-end crew recaptures the maneuver on the cockpit camera for the brief that's going to land on someone's desk in Washington tomorrow morning. The fighter rolls inverted. It pulls up across the P-8's nose at a 90-degree bank angle, showing its belly and its entire weapons load to the cockpit windscreen at 100 feet of vertical separation. The P-8's forward camera captures a perfect frame at the moment of the cross. PL-8's outboard, PL-12's inboard, cannon port visible at the wing root, infrared search and track sensor on the nose. Then he rolls back upright and slots into formation on the starboard wing this time, while the wingman descends to take port station. Sandwich complete. Lead starboard, wingman port. 2 armed flankers and 1 unarmed P-8. If you look here at what the Chinese pilot just did, that maneuver is a deliberate weapons display sequence. The pilot makes himself visible, then his aircraft visible, then his weapons load visible, and finally his willingness to use them visible. It's choreography lifted straight out of a Soviet manual the Russians sold the Chinese in the 1990s, back when the two countries were still on speaking terms. Russia has regretted handing over that playbook ever since. The playbook only works if it actually scares somebody. The P-8 isn't scared, which means the playbook isn't finished yet. The mission commander has now been photographed, threatened, and out-armed 3-1. He's still on his patrol box, still on his altitude, still on his heading. The acoustic operator at the back of the aircraft is working a sonobuoy transient with the energy of a husband who's been told to clean the garage. Technically doing his job, completely unbothered by the drama in the other room, because nothing else is happening that affects his job. One more step to run, and it's the step that breaks every safety threshold the Chinese pilot's training has ever imposed. The lead flanker disengages from starboard and drops away, and this time the maneuver is harder, sharper, more committed than anything that ever came before it. The APY-10 paints him climbing from below at 600 knots and accelerating, vectoring not alongside the P-8 this time, but directly toward its center mass. The pilot's hand goes to the autopilot disconnect. Inside the cockpit, the pilot has his hand on the stick at neutral and his eyes on the patrol aircraft above and to his right. The manual says never inside 100 feet of an unarmed aircraft, never with a wake cone that can put the target into uncontrolled flight. The manual wasn't written by anyone in this regiment. The G-load slams him into the seat as he pulls, his peripheral vision graying briefly while the cockpit horizon tips and the P-8 starts wheeling across his canopy. He closes to 50 feet underneath the wing at high speed and rolls left. A full barrel, 360 degrees of arc around the P-8's flight path, climbing over the top of the fuselage with the flanker's weapons pylons pointed at the sky for a heartbeat, inverting at the apex with 12 feet between the cockpits, descending below the wing on the far side while the P-8 wraps inside a rolling vortex cone for 2 full seconds, and rolling back to original altitude as if nothing ever happened. The kind of maneuver fighter pilots practice in simulators and then never actually fly. 12 seconds, start to finish. If you look here at the geometry of what just happened, this isn't a normal break-off maneuver. A barrel roll around another aircraft is technically a 1G maneuver where the pilot loops around on axis offset from his own nose. Done correctly in clear air, it's controlled and predictable. The threat isn't the roll itself, it's what the roll creates. A flanker leaves the wake turbulence cones about 200 feet across, rolling at roughly 50 degrees per second. Wrap a maritime patrol aircraft inside that cone and the engines start to surge and the control surfaces start to lose their grip on the air. It can also tear pieces off the airframe that were never built to take air pressure from that direction at that intensity. Imagine standing on a highway shoulder while a tractor-trailer blows past you at 80 miles per hour, 6 inches away. The truck itself isn't the problem. The wall of air behind it is the problem. Now, imagine that truck has wings and is doing a barrel roll directly over your head. The P-8 pilot punches off the autopilot mid-maneuver and takes manual control, both hands on the yoke as the aircraft rolls 12 degrees right through the wake, his shoulders slamming into the harness, coffee tumbling off the chart table behind him, nose down 5 degrees, throttles forward. Lateral separation opens 800 feet in 4 seconds. The airframe shuddering hard enough that the MX-20HD loses its surface contact and the sonobuoy data link drops for 3 seconds. The comm suite needs another 3 to resync. The flanker settles back into formation off the port wing, calm, professional, watching to see what the Americans do next. He's checked the box on the last step of his playbook. He's done what his briefing required, and now he waits. The radio comes alive. American aircraft, final warning, depart immediately. The P-8 isn't departing, and what happens next is going to require help from 280 miles away. The mission commander keys the encrypted ops frequency for U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. Indo-PACOM, not International Guard, the internal one, the one no Chinese pilot is listening to. He calls in the picture in tactical brevity code, basically texting your wife, "Call me now," instead of explaining the problem. 2 J-11s, positions east of Hayman, unsafe intercept ongoing, barrel roll executed, defense procedures complete, request fighter support. 9 seconds of transmission, machine encrypted and routed through a satellite relay to a controller at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Wickham in Hawaii. The response from the Pacific Air Force's Air Operations Center, the AOC, is short and doesn't commit to anything. Acknowledgement received. Wait 1. The P-8 holds course while the 2 J-11s hold formation and everyone waits. Inside the AOC at Hickam, the senior controller puts up the tactical air picture for the Western Pacific and sees what's airborne right now. Diva 1 is transiting the northern South China Sea on a Bomber Task Force Presence Patrol. Poker 1 and Poker 2 are her fighter escort, refueling off a KC-135 tanker west of Luzon. The flight is 280 nautical miles from Varsity 4-1's position, about New York to Pittsburgh, with 2 armed flankers already on top of the patrol plane and a clock running. Poker flight is 22 minutes out at a supersonic dash. Whether 22 minutes is fast enough depends on what the Chinese pilot decides to do in the next 60 seconds. If you look here at the air picture the AOC controller is watching, that's the room that tracks every American jet in the Pacific at once. Where each one is, how much fuel it has, what it's carrying. A senior controller sees hundreds of friendly aircraft at the same time and can pull any of them off whatever they were doing without asking anyone above him. An air traffic control tower with retask authority and no one to ask. When an unarmed P-8 starts getting barrel rolled by armed Chinese fighters, the AOC's job is to find the closest American or Allied teeth and redirect them. There are no F-22 Raptors at Canada right now. The rotation cycled home in April, and no F-35s on standby either, because they're forward deployed on a different mission 3 time zones away. The closest U.S. fighters with air-to-air loadouts and the authority to engage are Poker Flight escorting Diva 1. The controller keys his microphone. Poker Flight gets the retasking order on interflight frequency and both Strike Eagle crews acknowledge. There's a pilot and a weapons systems officer in each jet, the Wizzo in the back working the radar and weapons systems while the pilot flies. Someone still has to cover Diva 1 while Poker pushes west, and the AOC has already solved it. 2 F-A-50PHs scream off the alert pad at Basa, Luzon, Korean-built light fighters flown by the Philippine Air Force, and slot onto the B-52H's wing 14 minutes later. The Americans don't even have to ask twice. Poker 1 calls his wingman on interflight. Push west. Burner check on 3. 1, 2, 3. 2 F-15E Strike Eagles from the 336th Fighter Squadron at Canada push into afterburner in sync, and the acceleration hammers the pilots back in their seats hard enough to compress their vertebrae. The crews run the intercept checklist out loud while the jets climb and accelerate. Master arm on. Radar to long-range search. AM-120 selected. Data link to Varsity 4-1's tactical operator station established. Poker now sees what Varsity's APY-10 sees, and Varsity now knows help is coming. Poker Flight climbs through 35,000 feet at Mach 1.3, vectoring 290 degrees toward the merge 5 minutes out. At 90 nautical miles from the J-11s, the APG-82 radar in Poker 1's nose paints them both clean and clear. 2 flanker-class contacts in formation with a slow mover, the picture matching the AOC brief exactly. The Chinese pilots have no idea anyone else is in the air. Their mechanically scanned Type 1493 array is pointed at the P-8, the wrong direction. Their radar warning receivers aren't tuned to detect the APG-82's frequency profile, so they won't hear Poker until the Strike Eagles decide to be heard. They've been sitting on Varsity 4-1 for 12 minutes thinking they own the airspace. That assumption has about another minute to live. Every pass the Chinese pilot ran, the formation hold, the weapons display, the barrel roll, wasn't an intercept, it was a calibration. At 30 nautical miles, Poker 1's Wizzo flips the APG-82 from search to track while scan. Both flankers get individual target tracks on the ASA display. AIM-120D firing solutions stabilize at 25 nautical miles. The missile seekers are active in the launchers and slave to the radar. One squeeze of the trigger and the lead flanker is a memory. The lead J-11 detects poker on his radar warning receiver before the Americans are ready to announce themselves. He can volley both PL-12s and turn this into a 4-aircraft missile fight over open water with Varsity 4-1 unarmed in the middle of it. That's why Poker 1 sets up his shot from a frequency profile the Type 1493's RWR isn't built to hear. Poker 1's Wizzo punches the radar paint button, the one that fires only when the Wizzo wants the other side to know it. The Strike Eagle fires a directed, high-power illumination pulse at the lead J-11. The radar warning receiver, the RWR, lights up. The pilot's headset fills with a tone he is trained for, but never heard outside of a simulator. Back at Hickam, the AOC controller watches the geometry close on his display. Poker's 2 friendly tracks converging on the 2 red contacts at 25 nautical miles. Varsity 4-1 still holding her patrol box at 22,000 feet. He set this up 45 minutes ago. He hasn't seen one play out this clean. If you look here, at the radar paint that hit the lead J-11, that was the AN/APG-82 version 1, active electronically scanned array radar on the F-15E Strike Eagle, the multi-role Eagle variant, built in the 1980s, upgraded constantly, and still the last thing any fighter pilot wants to see on the other side of a merge. The APG-82 has 1,500 transmit-receive modules, is frequency agile and frequency hopping, and is paired with the AIM-120D AMRAAM, an active radar missile that throws 350 pounds of itself downrange at over Mach 4 and reaches out roughly 100 nautical miles, and the AIM-9X Sidewinder for the knife fight, built to never have to fight fair. The J-11's PL-12 medium-range missile has half the AMRAAM's range. The PL-8 short-range missile is about as good as a Sidewinder on paper, but the AIM-9X has a high off-bore sight seeker that lets the F-15E shoot 90 degrees off the nose, while the PL-8 needs the flanker to point directly at the target. The Strike Eagle wasn't built to dogfight flankers. It was built to outrange them, outshoot them, and never get close enough to need to. And the radar warning receiver, the device now screaming inside the lead pilot's cockpit, tells him what's looking at him, from what direction, at what intensity, and with what intent. A search mode paint is a shoulder tap. A track while scan lock is a shoulder grab. A directed ASA paint is hearing your wife use your first, middle, and last name from across the house. You don't need to ask what happens next. You just know it's coming. He has 15 seconds to figure out exactly how much trouble he would be in if the Americans had decided to actually shoot. He's been intimidating American aircraft from a spot where he had every advantage for years, and that position now no longer exists. Poker 2 paints the wingman from a different angle, breaking the geometry the J-11s were using to cover each other. 2 Strike Eagles, 2 firing solutions, 2 separated targets. The formation discipline the Chinese pilots had been holding for the past dozen minutes against an unarmed patrol aircraft becomes the worst thing they could be doing the moment the threat shows up from 2 directions instead of 1. The Chinese pilot thought he was running an intimidation playbook. Poker thought he was running a target practice course. Each AIM-120D on the Strike Eagle's rails cost about $1.8 million. The J-11 BSH on the other end of the radar lock costs many times more. The math only works one direction. The lead flanker snaps a hard right brake, rolls into a 6G turn, dumps chaff and flares, and plunges toward the deck. The wingman follows. Whatever they expected when they took off from Lingshui this morning, this wasn't it. The 2 flankers split formation and run for the safety of Hainan's coastal SAM coverage at maximum military power. Poker 1 holds the radar lock through the entire maneuver, and the AIM-120 holds its firing solution all the way down. But he doesn't shoot. Nobody's going to be falling out of the sky today. The J-11s reach 500 feet over the water and keep accelerating eastward back toward Lingshui. The lead pilot is breathing heavy into his oxygen mask. The wingman is flying closer than he should be, in the kind of tight defensive formation crews fall back on when they've just lost the engagement and don't want to admit it on the open channel. The aviation equivalent of 2 guys walking out of a street fight pretending they chose to leave. Neither of them is talking. Poker Flight climbs back to altitude and pulls into a defensive combat air patrol around Varsity 4-1. Strike Eagles at angles 2-5, P-8 at angles 2-2. The patrol box just got an air superiority umbrella the J-11 pilots can't see out from under. This is the thing the American taxpayer actually buys. Not the jets, exactly, but the guarantee that an unarmed crew over the South China Sea is never, on any morning, really alone. The J-11 pilots had spent years perfecting that routine against unarmed aircraft. The Strike Eagles answered it with technology they had never seen up close. They went home, lucky to be flying anywhere at all. Varsity 4-1 finishes its patrol box under Poker's umbrella, drops the last sonobuoy field, and records the acoustic environment and finds what the Chinese were trying to hide: their submarine. If you enjoyed this video, then watch this other video where China tried to take out an Australian P-8 by launching flares at it. Bye for now.